Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Where's Wally podcast. So before we get started, we're still waiting on my guest to make it. He's driving down from his place. Want to go over some updates for the future of the channel. Kind of a lot going on in my world, at least. So right off the bat, I took a new position, doing something pretty complicated and pretty awesome. I will not be going live uh, while working. Um, Working at this position basically at all. Um, I will continue to post kind of archival video and kind of random stuff, but at least while I'm working the job, I will not be going live or posting anything about the work, anything like that. It's also a contractual requirement. So I mean, that's a real thing for serious jobs like the one that I've taken on. That is, I think, pretty normal and smart. So uh, I would like to say thanks to everybody. I haven't checked in a few weeks, but as of August 8th, I had 100,000 views for the month of August already on the 8th. Pretty sure it's a lot more now. That wouldn't be possible without all of you. I mean, I got this weird, quirky channel, right? I never imagined I would get 100,000 views in 8 days, right? So I'd like to say thanks for that. In other news, Shannon and I have quite a bit of things we're working on. I'm going to be vague because she's running the show on that. We got some really good things coming up in the future. It's taken a lot of time and a lot of hard work and a lot of effort, and really super proud of her work. Um, I have been working on the website, so that's going to go live here very soon as well. Um, and she will be releasing um, the details on that when the time's appropriate. So let me see here. So yeah, lots going on. So today, this won't be a very long live. This is a going away barbecue day for me. If you're in the Northern Virginia area and we know each other, go ahead and hit me up or shoot me an email. All inquiries for the podcast, let's stick with the Where's Wally podcast gmail.com. Um, feel free to hit me up. If you're looking for work as well, um, let's say in a few different like job types, logistics, operations, open source intelligence, geospatial communications, things like that, um, could probably use you. Go ahead and float me your resume. I mean, I don't know if I'm obviously, like I said, I'm not going to give any details over here, but if you have a serious inquiry and if you're out of work and you're looking for something that's, really new and exciting and exceptionally unique um, work environment, then, potentially I could help. So, 100% not for everybody, right? What I would say is it's not my first rodeo, so I know the ins and outs of what I'm going to be doing, but it won't be for everybody, that's for sure. So, uh, so yeah, um, I'm in my garage right now, trying something new today with this podcast. So I got two laptops. I got my laptop, and then I'm using my other laptop, and so I got like two dedicated webcams, two dedicated microphones. Going to see how that works. So, I mean, by all means, please give me some feedback. Let me know if it's good or terrible. Hope it's not terrible, but if it is, let me know and I'll figure something out. So, let's see here. Okay, so some of a little bit about Brian, and I'll go into this a lot more in depth. But Brian, as I've known him for at least a decade now. Um, he works in the cyber world. He's owned and worked for multiple major companies. He is a really exceptionally good dude. Um, I don't know how much to say about him, so I'm going to let him describe himself when he gets here. But he is the founder of the Church of Loki. Um, and what we're doing today is I got a series of questions. Brian and I spoke ahead of time, and with limited time today, because a lot of guests are going to get here around 4. This is probably going to be like part 1 of a multi-part series to get the word out there about the church. Also, what are these processes when you're forming a church? They can be fairly complicated. A lot of times it just doesn't work, right? I mean, on the federal level, like applying for these, there are a lot of people who create these organizations, and they're complete bullshit, right? The government's not that stupid. They realize that there's going to be some fraud involved in things like this. Um, that being said, um, it's a movement that's for the wayward folks, let's say. So, the guy who's we'll go into this a little more, but the guy who's a combat vet, covered tattoos, maybe he has got like PTSD issues. A mainstream Christianity based, or Islam or Judaism or Hinduism, none of those, that person doesn't fit that realm, right? Um, I don't know how to describe what I'm thinking, but one thing I'm thinking, like, how to describe it is like, I've had a bunch of friends who've ended up in rehab for drugs or alcohol, or a variety of things, and like all those rehabs are like super religious-y, towards one denomination or another, right? That's not a mold that works for some people, right? And so some of these alternatives, like the Church of Loki, can actually be a big thing and a good positive thing, and set a ethical and moral standard that's not based necessarily in Christianity. So um, I think that's pretty cool. Um, yeah. So on the bright side, yeah, I got a lot of things to think about. I've been doing some turnover and some work related stuff, and a lot of research on that front. I am not worried. What I am worried about is, missing my family. It's been a long time since I've done stuff like this. And luckily, last time I left, uh, my 15 and 16-year-old, they were babies, right? So it was, they didn't really miss much. Having kids that are 2 kids in high school, and one of my sons in elementary school, that's something I've been thinking about. How difficult are these endeavors going to be for me? Um, they're probably going to be pretty difficult, but I think also that it's worth doing. Um, and I think that's a good thing. Um, you know, there's a potential where I'll never be able to give any of the details, and I think that's probably the most likely. But I guess what I could say is, it's uh, in America, even if you're poor, we got it really fucking good, and not all around the world. There are a lot of people who don't have it good, and the situation in these places is way worse than you could ever see on the news, right? The news, obviously, they don't let a good tragedy go to waste, but the reality of it is people suffer, and they suffer bad, right? And nobody is, if you're okay with bad that's happening across the world, then I think that that's a big issue. Um, so, yeah. But like I said, I'm in my garage. It is about as wonderful as a day as it can be. Let's see what the temperature is out. Let's do weather. 74 degrees. Oh, there he is. So hold on one second. Hey, hey. Yeah, see, man. You know. Oh, it's excellent to see you. Yeah. Right? Yep. How you been? I have to pee. Okay. Okay. Let me show you. Hey, be right back. I am going to just pause the camera real quick and I'll be right back. Okay. Let me pause the mic too. Okay, we're back. And no, not yet. I'm gonna bring you up here in just a second. So, all right, everybody. So, the founder of the Church of Loki is here. Brian. I'm going to bring him on stage in just a second. He's adapting to the new environment after his long ass drive down here. So, but here we go. Let me bring him up. And I'm going to mute. Oh, let's see. Yeah, sorry, man. It's a little messed up. And like I said, I'm trying a new way to talk to people, across this little butcher block from each other. But let me go ahead and turn his mic on and turn mine off, and I'll have him introduce himself.
All right. Here, let me take me off and just have you. There we go. Okay.
All right. Brian Martin, founded the Church of Loki back in 2017. We've been a small outfit for a number of years. And recently I decided that I wanted to do some bigger things. And as a result of that, we went ahead and got our 501c3 designation with the feds. There's some changes to how we conduct business now based on that. But we have always been a huge advocate for open books, open bookkeeping, transparent business practices. So we don't have any problems with that. Other than that, we're just moving forward with some projects, trying to get some stuff in motion now to do some good deeds with the church.
Outstanding. Okay, so like I kind of mentioned before Brian got here, we're
kind of pressed for time. So I imagine that this will be a multi-part series, like at the end of the day, because there is a lot to talk about. And so what Brian and I spoke a couple of weeks back, and we kind of developed how we kind of wanted to drive at least part one. And so I developed a few questions based on that conversation. So I'm just going to dig right into it. We're going to get through as much as we can, and then like the rest of it, we'll do a part two at some point down the road. But yeah, so let me. I'll start with the questions that we talked about, like the foundation of the church, right? Like so, it's an innovative movement, right? It's not based on Christianity. It's based on more of the pagan, the pagan philosophies, right? So the broader,
yes and no.
Yes and no, right? It's complicated.
It definitely does not fall into directly into the Christian Abrahamic,
right? And it's kind of its own thing. I don't know, from doing just a little bit of research, I don't know that there's anything like it. But can you explain the theological framework and that serves as the foundation for the church?
Sure. So we take some of the supporting concepts from the older religions, notably things like warrior mentality is a good thing. Contests are good. Achievements are good. Exploration is good. Invention is good. Conquest is good. But not into an extreme manner. And one of the things that's always disappointed me with the regions of the world that originated some of this stuff was that they seem to have completely lost track with their history. They did some really impressive exploration and then discovered commerce, and capitalism and commerce just sort of destroyed a spirit culture that was there that doesn't seem to be apparent anymore. And the way that we got to this piece with the church is that I, like a lot of people, was questing for solutions. I come from a background of a very distracted parenting and a lack of oversight and input, which got me into the military, luckily, so that I could at least have some sort of structure. And spent a great deal of time searching through world philosophies, trying to find something that would help me make sense of the world. And as a consequence of that, I sort of developed this strange perspective of chaos and things, and got very into some of the Native American heritage gods like Coyote and spider web, different pieces of that but we don't have a whole lot of information there. We have almost no information on the Norse deities either, except for what we got out of Icelandic heritage stuff, which ironically comes from post-Christianity conversion storytelling. So there's not a whole lot of material to work with, but there are concepts. And I started applying concepts to how we live our lives, and came up with this concept of chaos driving a great many things. If you look through history and you start listening to some really smart people talk about history and how things have rolled out over the ages, and I'm talking thousands of years, I mean, back pre even like Egyptian, some of the strangeness that has happened. And then you tie that back into some of the philosophies from the Jewish culture, the Abrahamics, the whole concept of Jacob's ladder. You get into this weird place where you start to wonder why bad things happen to people, and you start doing root cause analysis and things like that. And it's pretty apparent that we are our own worst enemy. And that a lot of us that are experiencing difficulties need to learn from our problems more, which of course, is pretty inherent in almost any religion, except for that one and that one, which we never name because they're a huge pain in the ass when you call them out. But everybody that knows anything about religions knows exactly which two religions I'm talking about. And the idea here is to, with our church, is one of the philosophy pieces is that we're not here to convert anybody. In fact, we're more than happy to have pretty much everybody from any faith be part of the church. Our goal is to get people into a better place mentally and emotionally so that they can live a better life and be the best person they can be and achieve all the things that they should achieve and produce the best outcome for the individual. And we do that through coaching. I've had a number of people come through the businesses in the church, and it has done really well for them, exposing them to these ideas that this chaos that you're experiencing is trying to teach you something. So our goal isn't to divert anybody from any other religion. In fact, if anything, I want to support those religions. I want to help people be more in touch with them, because when you get into the theology and the details of them, most of them, especially the Abrahamics, are pretty solid on what the final objectives are. I mean, you've got fuzzy questions with all of them and how you want to think about the end game, but the objective is to get people to a better place. And then that's what we're here to. So in that regard, we're almost like the concept of the fisherman, where we're trying to go out and find people who are distracted, disgruntled, dejected, all of the fun D words with what's going on in perhaps their own religion, and course correct, and do that through this lens of looking at the chaos. And in particular, you get to visualize it as a being of Loki or Coyote or any of the chaos gods. All cultures have them, and how those conceptually mess with you. They are metaphors for what's actually going on in your life, whether it's external forces or things you're doing to yourself to get you back to some kind of baseline so that you can start progressing forward.
Right. Outstanding. So you kind of answered my next question, which is still part of the first one. So, let me bring myself back up.
I'm trying to focus on you when you're talking. I'm learning. I'm new to the internet. Okay. So Loki.
Sure, it's not Loki.
It's probably Loki, right?
So,
but Loki within like Norse mythology, he's a really complex figure, known as trickster, shapeshifter, agent of chaos. How does Loki's archetype influence the core teaching and rituals of the Church of Loki?
So if you read through the Eddas and you look at some of the deeds that he was responsible for, and in a lot of cases, it can be perceived from a self-centered demigod's perspective of, I'm trying to do good things. It's just not working out right, which is sort of like what happens to all of us at some time. And to take the pieces of what was going on in the stories, such as invention, such as exploration. We don't spend a whole lot of time trying to teach people to be thieves, but that is the creative aspect of causing trouble to produce an outcome that gets you to a better place. And a lot of the stuff was self-centered, but that's one of the learning games that we have to get through. But the pieces that most interested me with the church is I'm trying to do good things. I'm having these dwarves build these things because I want to get a better outcome. I'm going and exploring this other place because I want a better outcome. I'm getting drunk with Thor and we're slaying frost giants because I want a better outcome, or I'm just having fun. But I mean, they're frost giants. Well, who wouldn't?
Okay.
Okay. Something that we talked about previously that I wanted to bring up. So let me mute your mic because one of the comments was we're getting a lot of echo. So I'm gonna mute it back and forth as effectively as I can. So one thing that we had talked about previously is kind of like the type of person who would be interested in the Church of Loki, and that's kind of guys like us, like the veterans, the guys who don't fit the mold, covered with tattoos, especially the hacker types. So like how would somebody who, let's just for the sake of argument, a lost soul or one of those guys who doesn't fit the typical mold, how will they benefit from the Church of Loki?
Yeah, so first, let me correct one piece there. We do get a lot of interest from the tattooed trigger pulling crowd, and notably so because the damn thing won't go boom when you want it to. We are very familiar with Loki in certain circumstances, but most of those characters, like Dave, drift more towards into the Thor realm. They want that, fiery, muscular, repressed sexuality. No, not them, just Dave. But they want that manly man's warrior god. And yeah, by all means. The other piece there is we haven't touched on is the All Father and how that stuff plays in. But the Loki piece, we actually attract a whole bunch of non-males. We get a bunch of witches and Wiccans. I'd say that 2/3 of our membership is not sandbox guys. Let's just aggregate it that way because that's an easier way. And for anybody that doesn't know, I'm not really a sandbox guy. I spent some time down there in GW1, but I was trying to drive a keyboard and shit kept getting in my way. So it's not like I was out there humping it. But the experiences that you get while you're in doing other things, like nothing went right. That was one of the joys of that operation on my end, was nothing went right. So the membership that we get is more diverse than you would think. And part of the reason for that is because the trickster gods, all of them, have a tendency to change form. And that's one of the useful utility pieces here, is that we're not all stuck in the same place. And usually you have to change something to progress forward. But the people that show up at the church nodding their heads and trying to help are the ones who would normally count themselves as lost, or at least somehow off track. And the concepts that we preach, the fairness, the contest, the chance, the impression that shit just is not going my way and I don't understand why, it's like someone's fucking with me. Yeah, a lot of times it is. And in some cases, you just don't have enough information, enough background to understand that that's just the way the world works sometimes. And you need to get a perspective that will let you deal with stuff more effectively and move past it. In particular, I'm keenly interested in some mental health aspects. There's lots of smarter people out there dealing with it, but we're poking around in those areas, seeing if there's not ways that we can help. Most importantly, we'd like to, since we seem to collect a lot of people that have questions along those lines, we want to know where to point them when we need to.
Okay. You actually answered 2 questions post that. One of those questions, which I'm going to kind of lump 3 into one here. You mentioned, well, how does, here, let me look at my notes real quick. I'd like you to talk a little bit about the role of gender within the Church of Loki. And then after that, I wanted to talk about challenges organizing the religious entity, like the challenges with the 501c3, but then also when it comes to like the legal matters for, let's say, the federal government, and then
business stuff.
right, the boring business stuff, but then also like the legal and social recognition. So for like the organization, we spoke about that, and I'm sure you'll cover those intricacies of how many times you attempted before you were successful. And then on the like the legal and social recognition, how do you navigate the tension between maintaining spiritual authenticity or a dogma, or however you want to phrase that, with the church, and then fulfilling the bureaucratic requirements? So let me go to you.
Okay.
All right. So the first thing you wanted to do was talk about the gender issues,
Yes.
Which is fun because Loki, has done some weird shit. But the important note here is that Loki is and always has been male. At times he has chosen to be other things, but it was for express purposes and largely to subjugate some other entity to his will. That being said, I don't really think that it matters. Historically, you could have had situations where just Loki didn't really have a gender, because I don't want to say that he couldn't have been female, but given the times and the culture, if you were going to be a female like Freya, you were explicitly called out that way, and they had specific gender assigned roles. Everybody in the Viking culture was a warrior first, but women were still women and men were still men. As for what we've done here in the modern world with transgenderism and things like that, we don't really have a problem with any of that stuff. I mean, we have issues with some aspects of it from pretty much the same way that anybody with a reasonable sense of responsibility would. We don't want to inflict things on other people. But if you choose to be something and that's how you want to be, knock yourself out. That's your business. Freedom first. Just don't impose it on us. The fun piece there, though, is that gender, as far as the church goes, we just really don't care. The next high priest of the church could be a female. There's no restrictions on that, like in the Catholic Church, or in some of the other religions that remain nameless. It's not an issue with us, because in the Viking culture, men and women were warriors, and everybody did what needed to be done to get the objective accomplished. So we don't divide like that. Sorry, I lost track of the question sequence.
No, yes. So after the gender questions, it's challenges that you faced organizing this as a religion in the 501c3, and then also how do you manage the legal and social recognition, right, specifically like navigating the tensions between.
Let's talk about one at a time then, because I'll just forget about it again.
Well, let's talk about.
I've been hitting the head too many times.
Let's talk about organization, organizing the church,
and how hard it was to get set up.
How hard it was to get set up. Yeah.
So if you haven't seen the John Oliver special on making a church, I encourage you to stream it and take a look at it, but know that it is somewhat misleading. You can't just decide to be a church and presto change, you're a church. There's some setup issues. One is, are you a subset of an existing religion? Are you a subset of an existing church? Are you a branch? Something like that. Our church stands alone. We are, unique a different separate entity. But when you set up a church like this, you get asked a bunch of questions that are not terribly hard to answer if you're actually a church. But if you're trying to build something like a church-like business, the IRS is going to spend some time encouraging you to file as a religious entity and not a church, because churches get specific allowances, allocations, benefits, hindrances, whatever you want to call it. We operate under a separate set of rules. We still have to pay taxes. We still have to file, well, not exactly pay taxes, but we still have to file taxes. And there are limitations on what we can do. You have to have a board charter. I honestly look at some of the stuff that goes on with the California mega churches and wonder why the hell they are still allowed to call themselves churches. It's mystifying, frankly, because they don't seem to align with the IRS rules. But that's the advantage of being a church, is the IRS doesn't poke at you too much. They don't ask questions, because the minute they do, somebody in a church starts screaming bloody murder about oppression, which is nice. So they sort of leave you alone. But at the same time, it's rife with abuse. And I think we need to do something about that, and which is one of the reasons why the church is set up with the open books protocol, because we want to try and set an example and put some pressure on some people to stop stealing money from easily fleeced citizens. And that's just not cool. So the biggest problem that we had in setting it up was when we decided to become officially a 501c3. That's when the feds get sort of iffy. And if you don't know the rules for churches, anybody anywhere in the US can decide that they're a church or that they have a church, and they can go ahead and start being a church. And as long as you gross less than $50,000 in receipts annually, you not only don't have to file taxes, you don't even have to keep records. So $50,000 is the ceiling for teeny tiny churches in special locations. Now, that being said, I am not a lawyer and I am not an accountant, and you should really consult somebody before you decide to start playing around with 50 grand, because if you screw it up, the IRS is not going to be nice, and that can add up quickly, which is another reason why we decided to go full bore with the 501c3, is because it gives people a reassurance that you're not screwing around in abnormal ways. Like I said, the California mega churches are doing whatever they're doing, and that's got to be some really creative bookkeeping, but we're not going to fall into that category because of the open books. The consequence of that is that the good deeds works that we want to do will all have to be spun off as separate companies, kind of like research universities do with their research projects. They invent something, they set up a company to take advantage of it financially. We've got some ideas, like we want to set up a chemical analysis firm to do chemical testing. That's obviously not a church business. It's nothing to do with religion and proselytizing, but it has everything to do with Loki and tricksters. Because if you're not aware by now that the people who put ingredients on packaging are fucking you, I don't know what to tell you. Enjoy the cancer. But we think that there's some room there for us to start poking at companies with that tool. So we want to get that into motion and start using it to have some fun with the world. I mean, that's the goal of the church, is to have some fun and enjoy being a trickster. And the way that you do that is by finding ways to mess with things in a productive manner. Let's see, what was the next one?
The next one was, and your answers are so detailed, like you're getting ahead and answering like, so I felt like for the time we had, like I got, I think 12 questions, like you've already knocked out like 6, but then we'll go into more detail on some of those.
Casual conversations. I spent 3 hours yesterday talking about this with another gentleman.
Okay.
3 hours. He's like, let me hear about the church. I'm like, okay, you asked for it.
So the next question was about legal and social recognition. So kind of 2 questions in one. Let's say the average maybe grew up Catholic Midwest type, they hear pagan, they think immediately bad. So there's like a social stigmata there, right? And so within that recognition, how do you navigate the tension between maintaining like spiritual authenticity and then also like the fulfilling the bureaucratic requirements, tax exemption status, and compliance with federal and state regulations?
Yeah,
Kind of all in the same thing.
Let's go reverse order. The compliance regulations is actually pretty easy. I mean, the feds were kind of annoying in the question and answer period. It took us a year and a half to get our designation because they kept trying to push us to not be a church. The federal government at this point in time is keenly interested in not allowing more churches to form because of limitations in how they can get at the financials. And I'm going to go ahead and chalk this one up to the war on terror and various religious institutions that have been set up in the country in the last 25 years that are new and unique, and say that money laundering is a pain in the ass and leave it at that. Beyond that, the social recognition is a fun one, the personal and social. The first thing that I try and do is disarm people and say that it's not really a pagan religion. It's a religion. It's a conceptual tool that you use to manage life. And it happens to align. If you take a look at all of the successful world religions that don't result in repression, oppression, or severe mental issues for their practitioners, you find that they're all generally driving towards the same set of goals, and they all have the same general set of tenets. So when I have conversations with priests and ministers and sorry, my brain doesn't work very well, rabbis, we all can talk the same language and try, and there's no real disagreement there. It gets a little bit weirder when you're talking to Buddhism and the Buddhists, but it's still generally well aligned. The places where we run into trouble are with the other two religions that we don't talk about. But that's neither here nor there. The social stigma is a problem, because when I tell my dry cleaner, he sees my priest outfit and he's like, "Oh, where are you ministering from?" "Oh, my church. We're virtual. We're online." "Oh, so what faith is it?" Well, he's from Korea, and if I have to explain the Church of Loki, we're going to need a couple hours, and he's going to need some reassurance that my soul's not bound for hell. And I am entirely confident of that, so that it's not. I may end up in purgatory for a little while, but that's for things that I did. So the social stigma of being a priest in a backwater religion, let's call it that, because we don't have $1 billion. The first impression is that either you're trying to screw people or that you're crazy. And it's neither of those things. And until you can get through a conversation with someone and explain what the objectives of the church are and what the founding tenets are and how it's all tied together, they don't get it. And it's like there's an image that comes with Loki and there's an image that comes with Coyote. And these are first round perception images, much like you get with any religion. When you think of a Taoist, a Buddhist, an Islamist, a Scientologist, anybody, you have an immediate impression in your mind of what it is you're sitting down to have a discussion with. And when someone says pagan, you think you have it all figured out. And the advantage there is that we're not truly pagan. We're trying an abstraction of the philosophy there and some of the concepts to help people move down the road. But we find value in many of the things that were considered sacred at the time.
That is an excellent segue into my next question. So you brought up that the Church of Loki isn't necessarily strictly pagan. And so this question actually kind of covers that. So what is the church's role in modern paganism, but not just paganism, pagan beliefs, neo-pagan style uh, uh, religious movements, and then also polytheistic movements. And then the secondary is, how does the church bridge the gap between the ancient Norse traditions that are kind of the part of the foundation, and also modern spiritual needs of today's seekers of a religion like the Church of Loki?
Good question. We don't try and bridge any realms there, and we're not necessarily interested in fitting into certain pagan perspectives. Because a lot of people that are pagans for a narrow interpretation of what's going on, in the same way that your Easter and Christmas Catholics are not really Catholic. I mean, they may be baptized and all that. They may fit into the religion, but they're not studying the theology. They're not studying the dogma. They don't understand the larger issues that underlay the teachings, and that's just fine with them. I would hope that the priests are getting a little bit more involved in that stuff these days. But the idea is with our church, is to interface and to create a mesh between all of the religions, because we're not just a pagan church of Norse deities. We picked the church name of Loki because he's the easiest one with the best historical documentation, that's the most well-known, to be like the face of it. But we are a church of chaos, and chaos is what advances humanity. When you get too much law, you get authoritarianism. And when you get too much chaos, you get anarchism, and that's not good either. If you look at the Eddas and the other Norse tales, you see a balance here. They weren't just about chaos and conquest. There were other things going on in the background, but the priests at the time would use the stories to teach things that some of which have gotten lost in translation, and many of which are just lost. But they were doing what priests do everywhere. They were trying to motivate people. They were trying to move things around, get things going. I mean, I'm sure at times the priests would lie to make sure that the king got his way, or they would lie to make sure that the people got on the boat to go over to England and do some damage, because that's what the king wanted. There were a whole bunch of things in the time frame where it evolved that we find rather offensive today, but that are still valid in some ways. For example, our church, huge fan of individual combat, martial arts, contests, anything like that, marksmanship. I don't care if it's bowling. I don't care if it's pool playing. If it's an individual contest, we are 100% for it, because that is a way to prove value. It's a way to prove your worth to the group. It's also a way to make a living. It's a way to focus your life on success. So these are tools that we try to support and help motivate people to get into if they're not. I mean, physical fitness and physical exertion is one of the most effective ways to treat a bunch of mental disorders. And again, not a shrink either. But I think that's become apparent at this point, that going to the gym and taking care of your body is way better than taking any of the drugs that pharma's trying to press down your throat. So we dig on that stuff. That being said, drugs are not necessarily bad. You just have to understand what it is you're getting into. I don't know if I answered it or got off.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, and that's okay. So let me read this one so I actually get it right, because it's kind of complicated the way I wrote it. Okay, so within the support structure that the church offers to who I refer to as the lost souls, or the people who don't fit the mold, how can those people guys like you and I apply like lessons of the church and into their own lives, especially when it comes to making difficult moral decisions? Or um, is there a we spoke on the phone and we mentioned Dr. Jordan Peterson, right? And like some of his things, like if you're that depressed, if some people are so depressed they can't sit up in their bed. So what's the first step? Sit up, right? Once you're able to get out of bed, what do? Make your bed, right? And like those are the like part of his 12 rules for life book series. And then he's got the maps of meaning.
Brush your teeth.
So like how can people take like the guideline, let's say, because like I grew up, I went to Catholic school, grew up Catholic, and I had a few very good priests growing up who were like, don't read it word for word. It's a guide. Like the book is a guide, right? So it's a guide to conduct yourself in a moral and ethical manner. And then, but then like, how would that translate to the Church of Loki? And like, obviously you brought up physical fitness and combat and know what you're ingesting in your body and stuff like that. But can you expand upon that a little bit in how the church's guidelines and morality benefit guys like us?
Sure. And you bring up a really interesting point with the Catholic Church and other churches, and that is that in some cases the laity is discouraged from asking questions because the structure that they are in, the whatever the version of the church that they're in, is trying to repress the people. The real Christians and the real Catholics and the real Jews are 100% behind people knowing more about their religions and digging into the true meanings of some of the texts. Some of the interpretations that are coming out of different corners right now are really interesting. Peterson's got some interesting perspectives on Catholicism, but historically running down some of the stuff that the rabbis have said. I actually have an AI set up as a rabbi because they are just so fucking useful. There's a quality that you get from actively participating in a religious philosophy and understanding the underpinnings and how things work that give you a long-term perspective that helps you through dark times. And if you don't develop that early in life, then you hit dark times without the tools that you need to work your way through them. And if you don't have a support structure to make up for that gap, like an organized church and a priest that can, or a chaplain, a military chaplain, somebody that can step into the void where you're in a position where you've got some really big questions, like about all these people. Yeah, I'm sort of feeling guilty about that. Can we talk about that? If there's not somebody that can help you address those and wrap your head around the problems, then you're in a void, you're alone. And it's very difficult to make your way through life alone and without those support structures. And like I said, a lot of our laity, our membership comes to us in that form of people who are essentially adrift. And we're just trying to give them some sort of basic foundation to operate on. And the thing that saved me was this whole concept of chaos and how things that are messing with you can be understood, but more importantly, they can be weathered. And that instead of trying to fight against the storm, you just sort of roll with it. Loki fucked up on a regular basis and, just sort of rolled with it. Him and Thor got into trouble a couple times and then, just sort of roll with it. On the other hand, he also paid some prices for that. His son was killed, Narfi. So you're going to have to pay a price. I mean, the whole horse thing, that cannot have been fun. I'm just saying. But the objective here is to tie all of this stuff back together and give people some basic tools. And we're the reason that we brought the 501(c) to that we did it in is so that we can get to some funding levels that will allow us to bring in genuine counselors and start talking about things. Because while I can deal with people one-on-one as a priest or a chaplain, and I'm happy to do that, I have a limited amount of bandwidth. And the church has a couple hundred members, and I would love to talk to all of them, but I can't. And we're starting to ramp up the priesthood, but we have to have requirements for that. But I think the important thing here is that we have support structures for all of this stuff. It's just getting people stable enough, getting them grounded enough to get them pointed into the right direction. We don't want to take, like I said, anybody from any other religion, and they all have support networks. But you'll see resistance in people who are lost. They don't want to talk to the church because the church is part of the problem or something. There's some misunderstanding there that they have to get past. On the other hand, they may technology. Yeah. They may want to get out of their church. It depends on which church it is and what they're having problems with, because religion is a lovely fuzzy object that anybody can wrap their heads around and get into and aligned to. But organized religions tend to have structures and rules. And that's one of the things that we're trying to avoid, is running down that path where we become another set of handcuffs for the membership, because I don't think that's cool. The Abrahamic religions have a lot of good things going for them, but I think we all realize that the Catholic Church has done some pretty shady shit, and that some of the other Christian churches are not in the best, are not regarded in the best light, except for the greedy people that are associated with the social network that's tied into their finances. About the only people organized that I haven't had any real bitch about is the Jews. And they have just done a really good job over the millennia of keeping their shit together and organized. And I'm frankly dumbfounded sometimes that they have managed to keep it running the way in a semi-successful. I mean, at times it's got its problems, right? But it's still functioning the way it was, 1,000 years ago, except that they don't dress like that anymore for the most part. But philosophy wise, it's solid. They teach it to the children. They teach them the deeper understandings of it. It's a very useful tool. And I look at that, and I look at Catholicism and the other Abrahamics, and I'm like, why can't you do that? Why? Oh, money, right? The corruption. So we're trying to avoid all of those pitfalls. It help us. It's that chaos aspect. It's that way of anchoring someone into the awareness of the chaos, and the making the bed, the brushing the teeth, the getting your feet pointed in the right direction, just doing the minimum thing or stop doing that thing to get you moving in the right direction.
One of my questions totally covers chaos and order. Something that we've talked about, when we've met up in Vegas at DEF CON, and a variety of scenarios at your place for WoodsCon, which we can talk about on another video. But how do you? Well, let's not even say the church. Obviously, chaos and order work hand in hand, but they're completely separate things. Chaos is the opposite of order, and vice versa. My life has been complete total chaos since years before I joined the Marine Corps, right? But when I was immature in my teens and early 20s, let's say, I did not look to Catholicism for an answer, right? At all. Because kind of like a lot of people, oh, here we go. That looks like fun though, don't it? One of the dads and his son are on electric like scooters and bikes, and it's pretty loud. But so my life was chaos for decades, and I didn't look to Catholicism for a solution. Obviously, oh my God, here we go.
The Church of Loki is not a real thing.
Come on over, Dave. Say hi. Say hi on one of the cameras. There we go. Dave, come on over. Hey, buddy.
What's going on, brother? How the hell are you?
Good, good. Dave is a member, and he's also a dick. Also known as the Hebrew Hammer.
What's going on, old man? I thought you got arrested on the way down.
Nice try.
Blake wants to say hi too, so I'm going to
that
have
call
him
didn't do anything.
say hi. So we'll get back to it. I got after this one. We got two more, and then we'll wrap it up, and then we'll do part 2 later. But
I was just running the juice
up the yeah, man. He was saying nice things about your people.
Wondering what juice. Ain't got no juice, old man.
Right.
I ain't got no juice, son.
So in your opinion,
Is this your swill? Your homemade swill?
No, it's just water. It's pure high quality H2O.
high quality H2O.
Quality.
So how would you manage the differences between chaos and order within either yourself? Because obviously some of your views are transferring over into the Church of Loki and stuff like that. So how would you manage maybe the words dichotomy between the two?
So one of the advantages of starting your own church is that you get to decide what's dogma and what's canon and what's not. And we're pulling together the things that we like from existing religions and the Eddas and other I don't want to call it prehistory, but the stuff from those eras, like the Native Americans. One of the things the church is interested in is sponsoring archeological digs to uncover more stuff. Because we need more information. But if you look at what we know from the oldest human writings, essentially nothing's changed. I mean, we're still having the same thoughts. We're still having the same lives. And when you tie that back into some of the modern understandings of religion, you start to see that there's a reason why that is. And it's not that the monkeys can't learn. It's that the purpose of this existence is consistent across time because this life form is here to take advantage of the frame that it's in. Why are our lifetimes limited the way they are? Because that's, how much time you've got. Reincarnation is another fun one. Did you know that reincarnation is not restricted in the Christian religion? That's a wild one. But the piece of tying everything together for people in the way that we're using it in the church is that chaos thing. I have the same sort of difficult start. How I wound up in the military. One of the running jokes with me and other vets is that I got all my PTSD before I went into the service. The objective here is to use our experience to relate to people who have gone through the same sorts of shit. So when you find a heroin addict, or when you're trying to help somebody who's got a cocaine problem or an alcohol problem or a social problem or anything like that, it helps if you've walked a mile in their shoes. And one of the downsides of current religious models, like you said, is that if you're raised in one of them and you have problems, there's a very good chance that that's the last place you'll turn for help. And that leads you into counterproductive areas, because if you're actively avoiding the people that are the most helpful, you're going to run into the people that are the least helpful. And they are on you like ticks on a dog. And some of them have even managed to form religions, and they will take all your worldly possessions and exploit you until there's nothing left. And then you're in an even worse position. So I think that the existing religions out there, the different ones, they need to do a better job with the support structures. They need to make the effort to bridge these gaps and to understand modern problems, if nothing else, and get people so that they're willing to come talk to people, so that they've got that support network. And the only way to do that is to do a better job as a church. And that's what we're trying to do. But like I said, I'm a very limited priest. There's only so much time in the day.
Okay, outstanding. Two more. The last one's real quick, real easy. So looking ahead, what's your long-term vision for the Church of Loki? How do you see the church evolving in terms of membership, its role and impact on the broader social impact on society and people, and especially those with an interest in alternative, like spiritual path and growth?
So let's start with the grand vision. The grand vision for the church is to have a bunch of pieces that fit together and let us fuck with the world, and do that in a positive way. The chemical analysis company is one of them, and we've figured out a really interesting funding model for that. It's not the typical thing, because obviously if you go to the VC world or something, you're like, hey, we want to set up this chemical testing company and do this, and here's this thing. They're like, yeah, how much can I make and how fast can I get out? No, this is not what we're after. We're looking at this as a thing that we can set up that falls into STEM, that falls into science, that lets us mess with companies that are doing bad things and support companies that are doing good things, but also gives us this really cool tool to use in support of law enforcement and colleges and students, and give people an internship pathway in a science. Because if you haven't noticed, it's really hard to break into fields now, because there's fewer and fewer entry-level positions open. So by doing things like this and finding a way to make it work with the church philosophy, we build a structure that supports the community, that supports humanity, and that lets us, like I said, mess with companies that need to be punched in the dick. And that is like the essential component of everything that we try and do. Is we want to help, but we want to help in certain ways that are a whole lot of fun. The downside to that is that we need some lawyers, and lawyers are expensive. So we'll be working on that angle in the future. That luckily there's a glut of them, so we should be able to pick up a few for cheap. But I want to get the good ones, and they have to understand the philosophy, because when we go to court with somebody, we want to take them to the mat. This is combat, like everything else. It's combat. Hey, forget where else we were going with that. The other pieces. The counseling arm, that's a big piece of it. So we want to set up some school and some internship programs for people in the psychological counseling. A lot of people that go through the sort of disconnects that we do, or that the philosophy appeals to, are the kind that drop into counseling positions really well, because they understand the problems that they're dealing with, since they went through a lot of it themselves. We definitely want to get tied into some prison systems and help some of the people get out of there and into productive positions. Some of the lawyer positions would be great on that one. And then there's a couple other pieces that I won't go into because we don't have them sketched out enough, but the next piece here in the evolution is getting the priesthood bigger. And we're finalizing the details on what it takes to do that. We want to get priests in every state. We want to hand them functioning church setup so that they can just get right to work. and start doing, weddings and baptisms and blessings. You're going to get a blessing before the day's out. So to take with you overseas. And that's a way to support the church. And then merch, of course, because since we're open books and we're not corrupt, we actually have to do stuff to get our money. We can't just glad hand people behind closed doors and move $1 million around. We've actually got to be productive with it, which is why we're trying to set up businesses that generate income in a positive way to keep us moving forward, because it can't all be about donations. Donations are great, but I'm the last person in the world that wants to rely on somebody thinking that I owe them a favor because they gave us a $10,000 bump. It's thank you for the money, but no, I'm not gonna do something shady for you.
Outstanding. So my final question for today, at least, and obviously this is fascinating, right? And there's so many, we could go 1,000 directions on all of this. How can the layman get involved? What are the resources that somebody who's going to watch this over, let's say the next 2 weeks, 6 months, 18 months, etc. How do they get in contact with you? How do they learn more? If they want to become members or become a priest, etc. Could you go into the pathway for them to do that? And, how can they, all those things, donate, provide support? Maybe somebody's got a lab that we don't know about that sees this. Would you go into how people can become members, get involved, read more, and all those kind of little intricacies?
Yeah, a good starting place is the Eddas.
Read the Eddas. There's a couple versions out in English translations that are very good. We actually hand those out when people ask. It's kind of like the Bible. We just give them away. The best place to get in touch with us for staying on top of what's going on right now is the Facebook group. It's the only stable thing that we've got going. The website has been up and down over the years as we've tried to get rolling. Even now, as I'm fighting with my conflict of time management with employment and full-time jobs and stuff like that, and contracting, other things. The Facebook group has been stable for a long time, and we post announcements there. So when we're going to have the annual meetings, which membership, paid church members will be allowed to attend, anything like that, any changes to the website will get announced on the Facebook group. It's the easiest thing to join. It's the simplest. And we don't post there every 5 minutes. It's not a media frenzy clickbait thing. I do occasionally have a little too much to drink and post something on there, but for the most part, memes. We're talking about memes. For the most part, it's generally low volume, and if you see something on there, it's very infrequent. So it's not like a spam account. You don't have to give us your email or anything. So that's a good way to follow us. The website is kind of up. When we finish figuring out how the membership's going to work and how the priesthood signups are going to work, that will get updated to allow people to buy their memberships, pay their dues, find out more about becoming a priest. It'll all be on there. But the Facebook group is what I recommend.
And what is the I'll post the link in the comments, or I'll pin it. Is there an email that anybody who's watching this could reach out to?
Yeah, you can reach me at highpriest@churchofloki.org. And which brings us back to some of the long-term objectives here. I don't want to be the high priest of the church. I don't want to be running this thing. I want to be the guy developing new business lines and labs. I'm a creative type. The dogma, the things like that, that's all fine. But running the actual business aspects of it and being the spokesperson, I never intended to do that. Aside from what was going on with the locals and the direct support that I have with individuals, I have no desire to be like a Joe, whatever the fuck his name is.
I don't know.
One of the mega church guys,
Is
Joe
that the
Joe
dude in
Dickhead.
California?
Yeah,
Olsen.
Olsen, whatever. Yeah,
Which,
burn in hell, little bastard.
right?
So yeah, the high priest at churchofloki.org is our general mailbox for whoever's managing dogma and questions at the time. That works for now. Another one is going to be like sales. We have a bunch of stubs set up like that in preparation for the website going live with purchasing options and things. Or just the Facebook group. Drop a question in there, direct message the group, and I'll see it.
What is the Facebook called?
Church of Loki.
Church of Loki. And
You want to show the symbol at
I will all the links and like all the links and emails that that are available. I'll pin those as a comment so people can come in, and I'll also post that on all the social media for the right for the Where's Wally podcast. So all the I have a link tree in the description. Everything on that link tree. I'll post the Church of Loki details. And it's a good resource. And also, if you have questions and you just want to email me, I will forward those on to Brian, and I'm sure you're okay with that, right?
So,
the mic back.
Yeah, there you go.
And one of the things that we didn't talk about was how big we are right now. We currently have two priests, one in Pennsylvania and one in Florida, and about 200 followers last I looked. Like I said, we're hoping to roll that out and get a little bit bigger, drive some revenue streams.
outstanding.
Before we wrap it up, I didn't really write a closing statement or anything, but is there anything you'd like to say to the people before we get off here and have some fun the rest of the day?
Yeah, be good to yourselves. Times are weird right now. Try to take it easy on each other. Humor, especially prank humor, is a great way to maintain a perspective and keep your bearing. If you can't take a joke, you're probably a little bit off track and should maybe reassess a little bit about what's going on in your life. That being said, don't mess with people too hard unless you know that you can take it, because people are a little brittle right now, and we don't need any additional headaches when we're trying to get ahead of the game.
All right, outstanding. Well, Brian, good to see you. Thanks for coming down all this way to have a pretty awesome conversation with me. First of many for this channel, I hope. I also was on one of Brian's podcasts dealing with like the challenges that a lot of us are facing now in the job market, getting jobs, things like that. I'll also post the link for that one. Brian, thanks for coming down, man. Thanks for being awesome over the years. We've been friends for over a decade for sure. And I hope this isn't the last time we do this.
I wish I was going with you.
Don't tell them where, because I think that's I can't talk about it.
I don't
Like
know where.
yeah, nobody knows. Nobody knows. But yeah, man, dude, this is you guys, but you guys are my friends. I don't want to tell the internet.
Oh, that's
You know that. But listen, everybody, thanks for tuning in. I actually got some cameras to the left and on the wall. And so right now this is going to come out on the wall while I'm on the plane, and while I have some free time, I'm going to edit this into clips and also videos covering the individual questions. And otherwise, thanks for tuning in. Looking forward to the next time we get to engage with each other. And hey, man.
Thanks a lot, man.
Thanks for coming down. And hey, everybody, we're going to sign off. Hey, really appreciate you guys tuning in. Like I said earlier, we had 100,000 views by August 8th. I think it's over 200,000 now. The TikToks had Xavier, how many did that one video have? 90,000?
I'm not studying.
It
It was like just one video alone on TikTok got 90 something thousand views. So everything's growing and it's going in the right direction faster than I ever thought it would. When I can, with the new job, I will post and engage with all of you. I can't tell you that's going to be on a regular basis, but that's how life is. Some things are, like I said, if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing, and what I'm going to be doing is 100% worth it. So, but Brian, thanks for being my guest. And to everybody who tuned in, hey, appreciate your time, and we'll talk to y'all later. So, Wally out.